Welcome to the Biz Builders podcast, where we believe building the business of your dreams can change your life. I'm your host, Sandy Patterson, former teacher turned certified life and business coach. After 14 years of teaching, I took a huge leap, left my job, and built 2 successful businesses with no business or sales background. Now I'm living the life of my dreams, and I'm ready to help you do the same. You're in the right spot here if you're ready to dig into not only the strategy of business building, but also the belief in yourself that building a business is possible. You're made for this, and you've got exactly what it takes to create the financial, time, and location freedom you're craving. Over here, we value progress over perfection. We embrace being uncomfortable, and we believe that anything, literally anything you want, is possible for you with the right strategy, mindset, and support. You'll also hear inspiring stories here and, of course, failures of women who are doing the same thing. The whole idea is if she can do it, so can I. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Okay, you guys, I am here with our first little audio tidbit of the morning. Now, I think that this is super important to talk about to launch this space together, because most of the women that I am in space with or that are attracted to me identify as a perfectionist in some way, okay? And it's interesting because I've had a love-hate relationship with the word perfectionist, because I think it's portrayed as like a bad thing, right? And we're going to talk about how perfection, like how you show up from a space of needing something to be perfect, and how that is inherently attaching you to the results that you're creating in your business, and how it's stopping you from showing up really, really powerfully. Now, I just want to be very clear. I am not going to tell you to not be a perfectionist. I am not going to tell you to we got to be like a recovering perfectionist or any of those things. And some of you listening, you might even identify as I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm going to talk through a couple of the ways that this can kind of show up. And basically with every single client, every single amazing woman that I've worked with over the past 2 years has felt these things in some way. So, and it can be really sneaky. I call it like a sneaky perfection trap, right? Because sometimes perfectionism can feel really productive, right? You can be saying to yourself that I'm working on this thing and I'm going to work on this for so long that it never actually gets done because I'm waiting for it to be just right, or I'm waiting for it to be perfect. And you tell yourself, right, that you're just being thoughtful, or you're possibly being really strategic, or you're being detail oriented. And all of those things are fine and they're great. I think that absolutely in our business, we should be thoughtful. We should have strategy for sure. And it's also great to be detail oriented, both in the ways that we show up and with our clients. But underneath that, what I'm going to challenge you to kind of look at today is areas where you are stalling, where you're digging your heels in, and you might not consciously be you don't wake up and put your feet on the floor and go, okay, today I'm going to productively procrastinate and I'm not going to do this thing. But there are probably areas where you are stalling, where you're second guessing yourself, where you're just trying to protect yourself from feeling like a failure. And that's okay. That all serves a purpose. But here in this space that I always talk about messy action and this sneaky perfection trap, and how it is tying us to our results. Because think about this, if you didn't care, and I'm definitely not saying don't care, we all care very deeply, we all care very much about our work, about our clients. But think about this, if you didn't care so much about things being perfect, and I get this too. I am the person, I am an overachiever. I have to check all the boxes, maybe a little OCD in there too. I'm very much a perfectionist, right? But it was this conversation specifically with my mentor that allowed me to begin to detach from my results, because what it was costing me when I was delaying and I was stalling and I was productively procrastinating or working on my, business cards and working on my website. And I literally, you guys, little story time here. I remember saying to my coach, like when I first started off my coaching business, like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna like tell people about my offer, but I'm just waiting until like my business cards are done. I just have to like tweak them a little bit more in Canva. And then once they're done, then I need to like order them. And then once that's done, I need to like wait for them to arrive. And so then when that happens, like when they show up on my doorstep and I have these like pretty branded, business cards, then I'll really feel confident about like sharing my offer. That's a total load of bullshit, you guys. And I'm saying that like that was me. That was something that I said. That was like an actual conversation I had with my mentor in the beginning of my business. I still freaking had this stack of like 100 business cards. I never handed one of them out. I literally yesterday just threw them in the trash can. I was like, I'm not using these. I don't need these. But that's what not procrastination, but the perfection part, because the perfection is tied to this, because I felt like I needed something to show. I felt like that those business cards were going to allow me to feel confident. That perfection had me thinking that if I didn't have them, like, who am I to say like that I'm a coach, right? It's all about, well, it was all about for me, how I was going to be perceived. And if I'm not going to be perceived as like knowing what I'm doing and knowing that I know my stuff, and I don't want people to perceive me as anything less than perfect or less than the expert. And I'm using the word perfect here in a different sense. Like it's not about, like, it wasn't about like people seeing like, oh, your makeup looks perfect, or oh, you have the perfect outfit on. It's about the feelings that I had within me. Like I needed to feel like I knew what I was doing. I needed to feel perfect. And I was using that as a, like, to stall, and like it was using the business cards as like a stall to be like, once I have that, then I'll feel this. And what that costed me, like this shows up in a lot of different areas, you guys. Like it slowed my growth down in my business, right? Because I was waiting. I was waiting for a lot of things. I was waiting for the business cards. I was waiting to feel quote unquote ready. I was waiting to launch the thing until all of the emails were written. I was waiting to post. Like things would sit in my draft folder and I'd be like, okay, as soon as it's like perfect, as soon as it's ready, then I'll post it. And it's, I'll just let it sit there. And there was comfort in me in having those drafts just sitting there, knowing that like they're there and it's okay, like, but it's not out in the world yet. Again, because I was scared of how it would be perceived. And that was the perfection. If it's not perceived as like, wow, this is really good, or wow, she really knows what she's talking about, or wow, like my worst fear was people looking at me and going, oh my God, what the fuck is this girl doing? Like, what is her deal? What is wrong with her? Right? But that's because that's what I was thinking about myself, but we'll get to that. So waiting to feel ready, like delayed growth. And also, you guys have probably heard me say this before, ready is not a feeling, or no, yeah, wait, hold on. Ready is a decision. It is not a feeling. That's the saying. Like you don't wait to feel ready. Like feeling ready doesn't happen. You decide that you're ready and then you start moving. Okay. So other things that this was costing me, and it might be costing you too. So inconsistent visibility. So I was only showing up when I felt confident or motivated, which led to confusing, like, my audience, which led to confusing messaging, which just led to confusing energy even, because I was so wrapped up in the results, okay? In how people were going to perceive me, in what was going to happen after I did the thing, after I pressed post, after I asked somebody if they wanted to work with me, after I sent the email out. Like, no, like this wasn't good. This wasn't a good vibe, okay? And then also, it's a real thing, like burnout. I was so embarrassed for a long time because I left my teaching job. As most of you know, I left my teaching job I didn't know I was going to coach at the time, but essentially that's what ended up happening. And so I was like, okay, I left my job that was totally burning me out. And now I'm sitting here in this new, coaching dream job, feeling just as burnt out as I was in my regular teaching job, because I was pouring so much energy into this idea that like things have to be perfect. Okay. And I wasn't saying that to myself. I wasn't like waking up and going, okay, Sandy, you're a perfectionist. So you're going to just like, burn yourself out doing this, or you're not going to essentially move. It was just kind of happening on the back end. And realizing this, like realizing that what I was doing, I was pouring energy, so much energy into tweaking things, into over preparing things, into like making sure things were, again, quote unquote, ready, to like stalling, all of those things. That was essentially all that energy could have been used in other places, and it was burning me out. So I would end the day just as tired because I was questioning myself because of the perfection, and I was tied. That perfectionism had me tied to the results. And when I say perfectionism, I'm not talking about like, oh my gosh, I have a typo, because I identify as a perfectionist, but I also don't care about typos. So it's on this deeper level for me where like, I do not want people to perceive me as not knowing what I'm talking about. And that essentially, again, is tethering me to the result, or it was at the time, until I realized how to begin to shift this and how to begin to use it to my advantage. Okay. So let's see here. So perfectionism, if we go back to the perfection idea, it's basically just fear, right? So when I was going through this, I was terrified of failing, right? Like, what if I spend all of this time and all of this money and investing in my training, investing all this time, investing all this space to learning how to become a really good coach, and then it doesn't work, okay? Fear of judgment, like I was just talking about. What if people, like, what are people going to think? What are they going to say about me? Fear of not being good enough, right? Like, if I can just get like the perfect message, or the perfect like brand colors, or the perfect like all these things that we fixate on, then maybe I'll feel safe enough to be seen. And I see this so often. So many people say like, okay, when I have this, then I'll feel confident. When I have this, like when I have more clients, when I've made a certain amount of money, then that's when I'm going to start to feel like I don't care about the perfection. I don't care what other people think about me. And I'm just going to move and I'm going to show up. But this week is all about showing up from that exact place that you were like, if you think, when I have this, then I'll show up like this. It's showing up like this from that really, really powerful place before you have any external results, before anybody buys it. Because that's where, number one, you're going to avoid the burnout. Okay, you're going to be more consistent, and you're going to move so much faster, and it's just going to feel so much more fun. So I'm going to push you, and I'm going to challenge you. So when you go really deep and you get honest, what is it that you're scared of? So if you think of spaces in your business, and again, whether you're brand new to business or you've been in business for years now, there's something here that you are avoiding, or you're digging your heels in, or you're like, Like, I always love to ask my clients, one of my favorite questions in my mastermind group to start the week off is like, okay, you guys, what are you avoiding this week? What is it that you're avoiding? That immediately like hones in on like, well, okay, you're avoiding that. Why? What's the fear behind that? And how is the perfection piece tied to that? Because this perfection piece, I don't hear this talked about very often, about how that is like tethering us to results. Because in our eyes, like in our head, we have this certain standard. And I think that having high standards is great, of course. But when those high standards are like essentially, they're so high that you're never ever going to reach that. Like, I don't believe you can ever reach perfect. I don't think perfect is like an actual thing. I don't believe that anything can ever be perfect. And imagine what it would feel like if that didn't exist. If you woke up every day with the belief that like, what I do is enough. Okay, what I do is enough to produce the desired result. And we start to chip away at that perfection piece, whether it's saving you or keeping you safe from failure or judgment or not being good enough, or maybe there's other things that you're going to kind of uncover as you think about this. What is it that you're scared of? So, and how is that tied to perfectionism? And how is that tying you to your results? And then I always love to play this, like, what is worst case scenario? Let's play worst case scenario. So like if I'm in my my perfection like I don't know what we call it, like mindset moment where I'm stalling and I'm like with the business card. Let's go back to the business card example. So in my head, like worst case scenario at that moment was that I was going to share what I did with somebody. Like I was going to say to somebody in a conversation, oh yeah, I'm a coach. I can help you with this. Would you like to work with me? Worst case scenario is like they would look at me and they would go, what the hell? Like, you're not a coach. Like, you're not cut out for that. Like, I think that's laughable, and they would like laugh at me and then I would feel really bad. If my energy, if I actually believed what I was saying, like, I'm a coach, I can help you. Would you like to work with me? If I actually believed it and I wasn't tying that perfection in to how they were seeing me, it literally wouldn't matter. And that worst case scenario would just be like, I would brush it off my shoulder. When it still lives inside of you, when that perfection piece still lives inside of you, it is not a brush off your shoulder type thing. It is very much something that you take personally, and it is something that can take you out of the game for days, for weeks, and for months even. And I've talked about this before on my podcast. I've talked about this in my spaces. It is very much a real thing where I would literally be like down and out, like just feeling really unmotivated, feeling really like, woe is me. And she said no to me, or she ghosted me, or she said yes, she was going to sign up. And then I never heard from her again. And like, I'm not cut out for this. All of these things would pop up and it would, again, just slow me down. If I was not attached to the results or this idea that it needed to be perfect or that I needed to show up perfectly and have all the answers, it wouldn't be an issue. And I would just be like, okay. And then I would just go to the next person and I would keep moving. So I'm going to challenge you today. What are you avoiding? And when you go deep and you get really honest with yourself, what is it that you are scared of? What are you avoiding? What are you scared of? How is the perfection tied in there? And how is that tying you to the results? Because business, I will tell you this right now, business does not reward perfection, okay? It rewards momentum, visibility, and action, messy action, right? And you cannot build these things if you're stuck thinking that everything needs to be quote unquote ready and perfect. So you're probably wondering right now, you're probably like, oh, this all sounds great. And I totally get it, Sandy, but like how the hell do we start like to shift out of this? I'm going to give that to you in the next audio. So if you're open to it too, please share in the comments, like when you get honest with yourself, what is it that you're scared of and how is that tied to perfection, or just really anything that comes up for you. Feel free to drop it in the comments here on this little thread. And I will look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. And I know, like I said, this is a big like aha for me, like, whoa. It's because of the way that I'm scared that people will perceive me. So let me know. Thanks for listening, you guys. If you're ready to get your business going and making money and to step into that next level version of you, I would love to support you make that happen through strategy, mindset work, and my Cut the BS style coaching, because it's always better, quicker, and more fun to have someone who's already been through it support you. Shoot me a message over on Instagram with the word ready and we can chat and get your questions answered about coaching and how I can support you. I cannot wait to hear from you.